going to ask you to work hard, to think and feel deeply, to search the hidden places of your heart for memories, for those moments that have defined you. A lot of the emotions we're going to touch may be uncomfortable, but I really do believe that before we can tell our characters' stories, we have to understand our own. That's because we don't create characters out of nothing. The raw material we mostly use is ourselves. We draw on our own experience of being a person. Like no one else, we have access to our own invisible inner lives. But digging for the moments that have shaped us is hard. Some of our stories break our hearts. Some embarrass us. Some we can only remember with pain. Some we might not be ready to visit at all. And that's okay. It's all right for us to feel discomfort when we do this work, but we don't need to subject ourselves to further damage. And both Chris and I have had the help of friends and counselors or therapists to work through the wreckage of some of our most difficult moments. And yet the challenge remains. Before you can tell someone else's story, you have to understand your own. If the core idea behind character-defining moments rings true, that much of a character's formations owes to a relatively small number of defining events or experiences, that's because it's true, not just of characters. It's true of living people. It's true of us. And a writer's or actor's ability to create credible, relatable characters begins with the insight, vulnerability, and honesty that comes with pulling up our own defining moments. This is work I've had to do too. I'll tell you about a moment from my childhood that defines me to this day. My dad grew up in a blue-collar town in western Pennsylvania. He was born during the Great Depression and grew up during World War II. He was a good, hardworking man. And for all the years I was growing up, he supported our family. He was faithful to my mom. He sang in the church choir, and he volunteered for Boy Scouts. But I can't remember him ever telling me that he loved me. I arrived at the age of 12 or 13 without the sense of worth a father's simple expression of love can invest in his daughter. Then my parents took me to Ohio to attend a family wedding. I sat in the church beside my Uncle Carl. He was the young uncle, the charming, handsome one, married to my Aunt Kay. I was so happy to sit beside Carl and his pretty wife, both of them dressed up and looking glamorous, almost like movie stars. In the moments before the wedding, Uncle Carl looked around the church, and then he looked at Aunt Kay and at me. And this charming, handsome uncle said, "I'm sitting here between the two most beautiful women in this room." Those words set my heart soaring, and they made a mark on me that no one else there could see. They ignited a new dream. For the first time, I imagined finding a man who would talk to me like that, someone who would put his feelings for me into words, who would speak those words out loud. I started to dream of someone who would cherish me. It created a moment of before and after for me, one that shaped my choice of who to marry and one that shapes me in my marriage to this day. Which moments define you? To deepen your understanding of your story in preparation for telling the stories of your characters with greater depth, try this exercise. Look for a moment from your childhood, a moment that shapes you to this day. It might be a moment of wounding or loss. It could be a moment of healing or growth, or the moment a dream was born. Get a sheet of paper in front of you and grab a pen or a keyboard and a blank screen. Now take a moment to summon your courage and call to mind moments from your childhood. When did you suffer that wound or loss? When did you make that discovery or decision? When did that persistent longing awaken? When did you experience that heartbreak through growth or healing? Pause me as often as you need to give yourself time as we walk through this exercise together. Once you locate the moment, use your imagination to step inside the scene and look around. Where are you? Who is present? What's happening? Where does the scene begin? Where does it end? What does it feel like? What is the lasting change this moment makes in you? Make some notes about your impressions, the specifics, the emotions, the before and after. Now, using the raw material of these notes, write a paragraph, like a scene or a short story, telling the story of this defining moment. A paragraph of 2 to 4 sentences is often the right size. Not so short that it fails to capture what happened, not so long that it loses focus. Other moments might fill an entire page. Once you've pinned this moment to the page with words, choose a place to save it. Treat it as precious. It's the record of a moment that defines you, and it will serve as a touchstone for the creative character work that lies ahead.